Welcome to
Only Murders in the Building,
the official podcast.
Join me, Michael Cyril Creighton, as we go behind the scenes with some of the amazing actors, writers, and crew from Season 5.
The audience should never stop suspecting anything.
How can you not be funny crawling around on a coffin?
No, that's true.
Catch Only Murders in the Building official podcast, now streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And watch Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Introducing the perfect companion to your morning listening routine. AG1's clinically backed formula is now flavor-packed with 3 new delicious flavors, tropical, berry, and citrus. Start the day on a high note with probiotics that taste like the tropics. Mix it up with micronutrients that taste like berry or citrus. And take it all the way back with the classic, AG1 Original, with notes of pineapple and vanilla. Do your health a flavor, or 4, with AG1 Next Gen, the daily health drink. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
In 2018, director Peter Farrelly and star Viggo Mortensen gave the world a buddy dramedy that may have won Best Picture, but not the heart of its critics.
In 2023, we bid a fond farewell to one of our favorite budget pours.
The film is Green Book.
The whiskey is Heaven Hill Green Label.
And we'll review them both. This is
the Film and Whiskey Podcast. Welcome to the Film and Whiskey Podcast, where each week we review a classic movie and a glass of whiskey. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And this week we are revisiting our Season 1 review of Green Book. Brad, when we first threw this into the mix back in early 2019, this movie had just won Best Picture, surprising a lot of people, causing film Twitter to absolutely melt down. And we thought, let's get some of that sweet anger clicks. Mm-hmm. And we did, it was a great time. It really put us on the map,
Oh, it totally put us on the map, Bob.
I have complicated feelings about Green Book. And I'm going to be honest with you, Brad. Most of these revisits that we've done, I've gone back and listened to our original episode. I did not do that today, mostly because I didn't have time, but also because, enough time has passed that any initial reactions have really worn off. I think 5 years is a really good amount of time to start reevaluating a movie anyway. All of the hype around a movie has fallen off and you can really just see the thing for what it is. So I'm kind of excited to just start fresh with a new review of this movie.
Yeah, I am too. This is one of those films that I remember because it was so fresh and so, I don't know if it was wildly controversial. There were just some people who didn't like that it won Best Picture. Mm-hmm. But it was so fresh back then, and we were still new to the podcast, so it felt like a bigger deal to watch this movie and review it than it really was. Mm-hmm. And now it's nice just to sit down and be like, hey, this is a movie. It has people in it. Let's see what we think.
Do you remember anything from our original review? Do you know, I made a point about this and I'm going to do that again today? Or because I honestly, Brad, here's all I remember about that day. Early on in the podcast journey, what we did was we would record 4 full episodes at a time. So we would just take a whole day once a month and knock out a bunch of episodes. And on this day, we met in the living room of our friend, producer Eric. I remember this because I had just gotten my wisdom teeth out. And
I do remember that.
And they were healing, the sockets were healing. And we ate pizza for lunch. And I remember a shard of pizza crust just piercing through one of my, absent teeth. And I bled everywhere. And it was a horrible day. That's all I remember.
Yeah. Those are very specific things about the movie Green Book, Bob.
I was going to say, I don't remember the movie. I just remember my teeth hurting really badly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you want us to like go back in time and pray for you? We can lay hands on you, anoint you with oil. It'll be great.
It was one of the first times I remember being really grateful for a drink of whiskey, though, because, you're not allowed to drink alcohol for like at least a week after you get them out. And so I had just hit the 1 week mark and I was like, I will celebrate with much whiskey. And we sure did.
All the whiskeys. Well, and honestly, this was a one of the best whiskeys of that day, I would assume. I don't know what else we drank, but man, Heaven Hill Green Label.
All right, man, let's dive in. And I think the place to start is where we always start, and that's with a little segment that we call Brad Explains.
Brad's gonna give us the movie plot with only 60 seconds ticking on the clock. So let's go ahead and hear your take with this little segment that we call Brad Explains.
Brad Explains is the part of the podcast where Brad breaks down the plot of the movie that he has just seen. Now, folks, we know this is not Brad's first time seeing any movies this season, but I am curious, have you watched this movie at all in the interim between the first time we watched it and now, Brad?
I'm going to give you one guess on that, Bob.
If I was a betting man, I would say absolutely not.
Yeah, this is a movie that I always was curious to return to. And so once you pitched the idea of re-reviewing season 1 again, I was like, okay, this will be the one more time that I ever watch Green Book.
There you go. And now it's your turn to give us a 60-second rundown of the movie. I have to say, Brad, some movies you can watch the trailer to, and it's not necessarily that the trailer gives the whole movie away, but it's just that you know that the movie is not going to have much more to say beyond the trailer. And I kind of feel like this is one of those movies. Like, even if you've never seen Green Book, you've got a good idea of what Green Book is about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, so you've got 1 minute on the clock to break down the plot of this movie, Brad, and go.
Green Book is a film about Tony Vallelonga, a Italian driver from New York who takes a pianist named Don Shirley on a tour of the South. The primary complicating factor of this film is the fact that it's set in the 1960s, and Don Shirley is a black man. Therefore, they must follow the Green Book, which is a motorist guide for, I don't know how to say it, Bob. The official title was The Negro's Motorist's Green Book. So it was for people of color to travel in the South as safely as they possibly could. They run into a lot of racism. They find ways to bond along the way and uncover hidden truths about themselves. And Linda Cardellini is incredible.
And the lesson that they learn is that the real Green Book was inside of them all along, right?
The end. Just play us out, Bob. That's the entire episode.
You know what? On that note, I don't know when else we're going to get around to saying this, Brad, but I think this is a really poorly named movie. I think it's a great title. It's a great title for a movie, but the Green Book itself plays next to no part in this movie. Like, it is barely touched upon. And then there is a few scenes where you see Viggo kind of thumbing through it a little bit. And it's, I understand that there is the metaphor, but like, if you're going to call your movie Green Book, you should at least dedicate a scene to really breaking down what the Green Book is about. And they don't do that.
I mean, was there more to the Green Book than what they showed?
Yeah, you're right, dude. I think there's not that much more that they could have talked about, but I think calling the movie Green Book is almost, I hate using the word problematic. I don't want to talk about why this movie's problematic, but like, it kind of implies that the movie is going to really be about the lived experience of the black characters in the movie, and it's not. Like, Don Shirley is very much a supporting character, and it's more of a story of Viggo Mortensen learning to become not so much a racist anymore. And I think that, like, they could have come up with a title that better reflected that, I guess is all I'm saying.
All I can think about is like a title like Crazy Stupid Love, but Crazy Stupid Racist.
Oh, man. Where do you want to start today? Do you just want to dive right into the two big performances? Do you want to talk about the film itself? Like, we're going to wade into some mildly hot waters here. So where do you want to start splashing about?
I mean, let's talk about the performances. I think that they are the only reason this movie has legs.
Mm-hmm.
So we might as well spend the bulk of our time there.
Let's start with Mahershala Ali, because I'm going to have more complicated thoughts on Viggo Mortensen, and I don't want it to sound like I'm here to complain about this movie all day. And if there was any surprise in rewatching this movie, Brad, and there weren't very many surprises, it was exactly what I remembered it being. But man, I don't know if I remembered Mahershala Ali being quite this incredible. It was like revelatory how good he was in this movie.
Yeah, Mahershala Ali, from the start of the film to the end, just has this energy about him that completely fits, I think, what Peter Farrelly was going for.
Mm-hmm.
He just has this incredible aura of anger, and he's brooding, and he's ready to lash out, and yet he has a kind intelligence about him that's just endearing. And I don't know how he does it, but he simultaneously is somebody I never want to spend time with, and yet I also want him to be like the godfather to my children.
He plays wounded so well, and he never seems, well, I don't want to say he doesn't seem bitter. He seems like internally bitter, but he's open to the world, and he's a person that feels like he's been rejected by the world. And he gets his great big Oscar-y moments, and I love that for him. But I think the most winning parts of this performance are in the really small moments. And it's especially in the scenes that, and we'll get into talking about the scenes that we like and dislike the most, but, you know, like the fried chicken eating scene, which has just red flags all over it. If there's any reason that a scene like that even remotely works, it's because of Mahershala bringing humanity to that scene. Like, you know, Viggo's doing what Viggo's supposed to do in that scene, but there are moments in this movie where the writing wants to make these two guys into cartoon characters, and the only reason that it even kind of works is because Mahershala plays it not just how it's on the page, but plays it as a guy who has seen a lot of the world and knows that even when these white people mean well, like, this is kind of offensive. And so he plays into that. And I think it really lends a sense of believability to even the most unbelievable scenes in the movie.
See, honestly, it's a scene like that I find completely believable. Like, just from the sense that this, the whole movie, I think the reason it works so well in a lot of places is because you can imagine this all being true in the 60s. Like, I can imagine an Italian dude from the Bronx being as casually racist as Viggo is in this movie.
Oh, of course.
And so I think it's stuff like that where I don't always know how to, like, deal with this movie, because in a certain sense, I feel like it's just displaying things as they mostly were, you know, and there are some people in the 60s who were not racist, and there were a lot of people who were. And so I don't always know how to judge, like, Viggo's character. But when we're talking about Mahershala Ali, you are correct in saying that, you know, in places like the chicken eating scene, he has just a little bit of childlike delight as he eats these wings that makes you truly believe that this is the first time he has ever eaten them. And there is something about Viggo in that moment as well, where, like, his earnestness belies the fact that, like, yeah, maybe he's being a little bit stereotypical and racist in that stereotyping, but he is so sincere that he doesn't even realize it. He just wants to share good food with the guy he's driving. And so I don't know, man. I don't know what to do with this movie.
Yeah, I don't either, man. It's really hard to talk about because, all right, well, maybe the key, the gateway into talking about it is to talk about Viggo. I have so many conflicting thoughts on Viggo Mortensen in this movie. And I guess I'll start by saying I think he deserved the Oscar nomination that he got for this movie. And at the same time, I believe that everything else I'm about to say about that performance is also true. Do you know what I mean? Like, without even knowing exactly what I'm going to say, Brad, I think you know what I'm going to say, right?
A little bit, yeah.
First of all, has there ever been a more Scandinavian-looking man than Viggo Mortensen? His name is
actually,
Viggo Mortensen.
I believe that he's half, not Brazilian. He is half South American.
Interesting.
I'm pretty sure his mother is South American.
All right. Well, he has very Scandinavian features, I guess is what I want to say. In any case, he has zero resemblance to an Italian American. Like zero. And even like in the scenes where the comedian Sebastian Maniscalco plays his brother, and they're like, loading up the trunk of the car for him to go on his trip. And I'm like, these two guys look nothing alike. When they show Viggo eating like with his family at the table, it's like, this is just a Swedish guy that they dyed his hair black. I don't understand how they landed on Viggo for this movie. And again, that's to say nothing about what he ultimately does with the performance, but like, it's just an interesting choice that they're like, let's take the most Italian guy from New York City. Who should we pick? And they're like, I know just the guy, Aragorn.
See, here's the thing. In my research for our episode, Bob, I found out that Viggo was Peter Farrelly's like absolute first pick, but that he sent the script to Viggo basically without a hope that he would actually take the role. Because at this point, and throughout Viggo's career, he really hasn't done a ton of movies. Like, he's very picky about the roles that he takes. And this one apparently intrigued him, and he like got on. And so the real Tony Vallelonga was a character in The Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
And so he watched every single episode of The Sopranos, and like to get the feel of, Italian culture in general, but also for how, Tony himself spoke. And he really took it on and really was excited for this role.
Like I said, I think he does a great job in the role. I think that the script does him no favors in a lot of places, and that it's really hard to capture a guy who was a larger than life figure. I think everybody has a person like this in their lives where it's like, if you're going to write a script about your kooky uncle, right? A lot of these things in the script, Nick Vallelonga said happened in real life. Like, he would order an uncut pizza and just fold it in half and eat it like that. And they wanted to fit that little detail in somewhere. I think the problem is that you really have to walk a fine line between those things adding color to a character and fleshing them out, and those things making your character then just become a cartoon. And I think that Viggo himself is committed and gives it his all, and I think comes out the other side having captured us as an audience and really empathizing with this character. But I also am like, oh man, I wish I didn't have to watch Viggo do some of the more embarrassing things in this movie.
See, I don't think I'm with you, man. I don't think there was ever a point in this movie where I was like cringing at what Viggo was doing. Like, throughout the entire film, I just found him to be extraordinarily charming. He pulls off the unintelligent yet someone you just want to hang out with type of bro perfectly well. So I don't know, man. I think that you are picking one too many nits here.
Yeah, it's just hard. Like I said, I think that he deserved every ounce of the Oscar nomination. It's a good performance. And, if we can kind of segue into the movie itself, this is a movie that got really dumped on after having gotten a really positive reception. So I think this movie has like a 78 or something on Metacritic, which is a good score. And then it starts winning over, especially some of the older members of the guilds and the academy, and it becomes a real awards contender. And all of a sudden, you could feel this groundswell of critics just turning on it. Like, hey, this was a good movie, but now we hate it because it's going to usurp our preferred movies. And I have always struggled, Brad, to parse out what criticisms of this movie were really valid and what criticisms came because people got so sick of seeing this movie win and felt it was an undeserving winner that they then went back and said, no, it was actually bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, here we are recording this episode, and right now it has an 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's not like this is a poorly reviewed film.
No.
But you're 100% right. It feels like the film media in general just kind of dumped on this movie. And watching it a second time through, I don't think it deserves all the dumping that it got.
Yeah, I think it really was the victim of, this was right in the middle of the first go round of like hashtag Oscars so white. And some of the movies that it was nominated up against this year, like Alfonso Cuarón's movie Roma, which is like this foreign language, intimate portrait of poverty and coming of age. And it goes up against Spike Lee's movie Black Klansman. I think that it ultimately became a lightning rod for, we think that the older Academy members are going to vote for this feel-good movie that doesn't tackle issues of race in the same, I don't want to say confrontational way, but like, it's a feel-good movie, right? Like a character goes from being pretty racist to not so racist and really wants to understand the world. And you walk out of this movie feeling like, I feel great after I walk out of this movie, right? But I think there is a huge segment of people that are like, it's easy to reward a movie like this where like racism gets solved at the end of the movie versus these other two movies that really deal with the hard issues of life more. And I think that is a valid criticism when you're forcing a comparison. But like in a vacuum, this is not a bad movie. I think this is actually a really well-made movie. And one of the big surprises for me was how well directed, how well edited, how well shot. Like, it's a great looking movie, and it's a genuine crowd pleaser. And I just think that ultimately it became a victim of a crowd pleaser that got released in the wrong year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the funny thing is, you're talking about the Oscars too white type of thing. And I look back at the actor in leading role, supporting, and actress in those two. 3 out of those 4 went to people of color. Like, you have Regina King, you have Mahershala Ali, and you have our favorite performance of all time, Rami Malek.
Rami Malek, baby.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. What a weird year this was, now that I think back on it.
Yeah, like such a strange year. I mean, honestly, the only one that really made a lot of sense was like, Cuarón winning cinematography for Roma. I think Regina King for supporting character or supporting actress makes a lot of sense. So there's like a lot of things that do make sense, but then you have Bohemian Rhapsody doing incredible, and you have Green Book winning Best Picture, and what? Yeah, like, what a weird year.
And now that you mention it too, I think that like the weird symbiotic relationship between Bohemian Rhapsody and this movie also caused more critics to turn on this, because it was like Green Book was winning Best Picture across the board, and so it was boring, and it wasn't like the socially conscious pick. And Rami Malek was winning across the board for a movie that objectively sucks. Like, that movie
so bad.
Sucks. And so I think that like these two movies became inextricably linked as movies critics didn't want to win their awards. And in retrospect, I think people dump on the quality of this movie
when they shouldn't.
When they really shouldn't. It's a good movie.
Yeah. Oh, you know what else it was? Black Panther was up for Best Picture.
Well, and then you had, like you just mentioned, If Beale Street Could Talk lost out on a Best Picture nomination. And that was my favorite movie of this year. I know that we've parsed out our thoughts on that movie before, but so you've got all of these things converging at the same time. And I really think that like in another year, does this win Best Picture? Who knows? I think it would have been seen as a more innocuous entry than it was this year.
Yeah, because like you said, Bob, I think this is an incredibly well-made movie. Like, I think the lighting is really beautiful throughout, the way that they show the different sides of the underbelly of the South. I think that they use lighting incredibly well. I think that his cinematography, the car scenes are really incredibly well done. So yeah, I just, man, I had a blast watching this movie again. There, I'll say it.
I will too. And, well, I won't say I had a blast. I think this movie drags a little bit. Like, I noticed the runtime more than I ever have. This is my 4th time watching this movie now. And it was the first time that I was like actively checking my phone at certain parts. And part of that is because I'm familiar with it now. But I think it runs about 2 hours and 10, 2 hours 15. It could have been like an hour 55, if we're being honest. There are a couple scenes that just get repetitive. And like, there's only so many fish out of water, these two guys are an odd couple, that you really need to establish that. And I think that, like, I don't know if it's the fried chicken scene or if there's another one after it, but I remember thinking this time that they had done a really good job of the fish out of water, odd couple scenes. And then they had started to get to know each other better. And then they're like, let's do another one of those scenes because we need comic relief now. And I remember thinking, like, you probably could have cut that one.
Yeah.
There's only so many times that I can see Don Shirley yell at Tony Lip about not paying for a rock. Then it's like, all right, like, do we need to have another Lucky Rock scene?
Yeah. I am with you. There are moments that this movie drags. I think that for me, it was probably like 60% of the way through when you're kind of in the slog of the South, which, you know, maybe he kind of meant for it to feel like a slog. But it just felt like a few scenes dragged on a little bit too long, and we were delaying the inevitable, like, let's get back for Christmas and have a nice Christmas scene.
Listen, man, I will freely admit, it does not matter if 98% of your movie takes place in the dog days of August. If you end your movie with a scene where a character realizes the true meaning of Christmas, I am on board. I don't even care. Like, I tear up at the end of this movie just because of the way Linda Cardellini says Merry Christmas to people. You know what I mean?
Yep. 100%, dude. So I guess at the end of the day, this is just a really beautiful Christmas movie.
It is, man. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men.
Oh, man.
And
well,
let's eat fried chicken, right?
And let's drink some Heaven Hill Green Label. Am I right?
I think this is a good place, Brad. Let's press pause here. Let's drink this discontinued fan favorite bourbon. What do you say?
Let's get to it.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
All right, so today we are checking out Heaven Hill Green Label. Now, that is not the official name of this product. It's just called Heaven Hill Old Style Bourbon, but it has a big old green label on it. Brad? It is an age-stated bourbon, 6 years old, and at the time I bought it, I think it was up to like $17.99, but for a long, long time, it was known for being like a $10 bottle of whiskey, and it was, among bourbon drinkers, one of the biggest crowd pleasers and like an inside secret that you could get this bargain bourbon and it was just as good as top shelf stuff. And we'll get into what happened to it, but I have very fond memories of drinking this, Brad.
Yeah, honestly, you brought back, I think, 3 bottles for me. 1 to keep for myself, 2 to give to friends. And if I'm being honest, Bob, I was not able to give one of those bottles away. So I cracked it open for this review, not having realized that it was discontinued. So I'm sitting here like, man, I just cracked open a bottle that is coveted worldwide.
Can I ease your conscience a bit about not giving those bottles to friends? I'm down to my last bottle. It's been sitting on my shelf for probably 2 years now. I am well under halfway on that bottle. And I had to give you some for this review, not knowing you had another bottle on hand. So I would like to humbly request, give me my sample back so that I can stretch this just a little bit more. Because like we said, Heaven Hill has discontinued this product. A few years ago, they released a Heaven Hill bottled in bond that carries a 7-year age statement. So they're basically taking this stock and a couple other things, and they were making this new product with it. It came out at the height of this bourbon boom that we've been going through, and it's $40. And I am told that it is not really any better than the $15 Heaven Hill Green Label. And I'm just super bummed that this is not a thing anymore, man. This was just like old reliable for me, and I hate corporate greed.
Yep, it sucks.
All right, let's review the whiskey.
That's all I have to say.
All right, this is a 90 proof whiskey. Like I said, 6 years old. It uses Heaven Hill's standard mash bill, which is 78% corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley. So no wheat in this bad boy, but there's quite a bit of rye. Brad, let's dive in. What are you picking up on the nose?
The nose is beautiful, Bob. It's candy corn, it's cornbread, there's some caramel, there's oatmeal cookie, and then a little bit, once you sit with it for a while, you get into those rye baking spices kind of start to come through. But for the most part, it's a really nice, like fresh grain, sweet mess of awesomeness.
I am kind of regretting not being there with you right now for this fresh popped bottle, because I think mine has oxidized a little bit. I think mine's just kind of, it's been sitting open for so long and there's so little left in the bottle that I just think it's kind of dulled at this point. I'm getting just a lot of oak, a lot of sawdust. And then you had a really nice note that I loved, which was oatmeal cookie. I'm getting a little bit of that, but I think it's mostly because it reminds me of oats so much. It's not grainy, but it's like grain forward, if that makes sense. And I wish that there was a little bit more of that brown sugar and caramel. On my sample, knowing what it used to smell like when this bottle was fresh, I'm going to grade a little bit on a curve. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 on the nose.
Yeah, I give it an 8 out of 10 on the nose. The palate for me turned a little more sweet. There was caramel and vanilla coming through really strong. There was some fresh, almost like a corn on the cob with some butter on it, mixed with all that rye that you were talking about. So there's a really nice balance of flavors here that I gave it a 7.5 out of 10 on the palate.
Your notes are so on point today, man. Cornbread with salted butter is like a perfect description for this, except that it's just a little bit more potent rye behind that. Like, it's not sour, but there's a little bit of smoke, a little bit of bitterness to this as well to go with this really buttery mouthfeel. I like this a lot. Damn, I really want to come down to Delaware and try this like fresh bottle. Like usually, it's not like wine where whiskey goes bad, but there is some science behind the idea of like, especially if you've drank more than half the bottle, the earth takes its toll on your open bottle of whiskey after a while. And I would like to know what a fresh one tastes like. I'm vamping. I'm going to give it a 7.5 on the taste.
Yeah, the finish here, there's baking spices, there's oak, the vanilla sticks around, and the oatmeal cookie goes from being like a sweet, fresh-baked cookie into tasting more like a regular, nice bowl of oatmeal with a little bit of brown sugar on it. I like the finish a lot. It comes up a little bit from the palate, and I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, I think, honestly, the note that really hangs on the longest here is there's a little bit of Coca-Cola for me on the finish, but it's salted butter. Like, there is just a little bit of saline to this that I wasn't expecting, and the buttery mouthfeel and that taste of saline really leads me to, I really do think about, like, putting some butter on a piece of cornbread or, like, a corn muffin. Really, really good. I like the finish a lot. It's long-lasting for being a 90 proof $15 whiskey. I'm going to give it an 8.5 on the finish.
Yeah, and for the balance here, I think that there's just enough complexity here to keep the score somewhat high. But honestly, Bob, this is just a really nice, simple bourbon that checks all the boxes you want it to check. So I gave it a 7.5 out of 10 on the balance.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give it an 8. Like you said, it's not really, I don't know how to talk about this whiskey. It's not really anything to write home about, but it is just consistent across the board. It's really good. It's good enough that you could drink it neat. You could put it on a rock. You could put it in an old fashioned, and it stands up really, really well. I prefer this flavor profile to something that's more oak heavy, like a Buffalo Trace. And I think that that's part of why I gravitated towards this so early on in my bourbon drinking journey. So yeah, I'm coming out to an 8 on the balance. Value is going to be an interesting one because you can't really buy it anymore. I mean, I'm sure you can buy it online. Brad, what are you seeing price-wise for this?
Yeah, Bob, unfortunately, you really can't find this online anymore. I tried to search for it, and only one place came up for $175.
Welp, I don't really know how to score this, man. It is like a 0 out of 10 for $175. I would not recommend even looking at this for $175.
I'm just going to score this as if it's 2017. And you can still get it for like $14, $15. At that price, this whiskey was a 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like, easily the best value in whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
It's even better than Rebel 100, Bob.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that what we're scoring this on is a pour of whiskey at a whiskey bar. Now, they're probably charging, I don't know, $15 a pour for this now. So like you would be paying as much for a pour of this as you used to for a bottle. With that in mind, I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 on value. Is that fair, Brad?
Yeah, I would say that that's fair. I think that this is just an unfortunate reality of the whiskey world.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a lot of great whiskeys that just kind of get snapped up or they change hands and the recipe changes. What's that one? It's a blue label bottle and bond.
Early Times bottled and bond.
Early Times. Yeah. Didn't they change hands at some point? Yep. So we don't know if it's any good anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's stuff like that makes the whiskey industry kind of hard to follow at times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, luckily there is such a plethora of whiskey right now that you can find tons of great whiskey for $20 to $30. But just let us have this one, guys. We're sad. All right.
Brad, I'm coming out to a 37 out of 50 on this one. Where are you at?
Well, if I give it my 10 out of 10 for a $15 value, I would be at a 41.
Mm-hmm.
Let's come down a little bit. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 on value. So I'll come out to a 39 out of 50.
That puts us on average at a 38 out of 50 or a 76 out of 100. I think that's a good spot for this. It's a well above average whiskey whose selling point was its value. Like, you can't get a 6-year age stated anything anymore for $15 or $20. And it just sucks because I think, am I overstating how good the whiskey is? Probably. But I am mourning a time gone by when American whiskey was in such little demand that you could get really good whiskey for $15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, dude, I still think about when we were back in grad school, 2016, 2017, and we're living in Kentucky, and you could get a bottle of Eagle Rare for like $28.
Mm-hmm.
You could get this for $14, $15. There was just so much whiskey available to you that hadn't gotten snatched up yet in the midst of the bourbon craze.
Think about, like, we were so poor back then too. And Film and Whiskey Nation, I have been poor most of my life. I have never known poor like grad student poor because I didn't qualify for any assistance because I was a student. And Brad, you and I scraped together enough money to split a bottle of Eagle Rare. And when I say that in 2023, it's because people assume that we're buying it secondary and it's like $100 now. No, it was like less than $30.
Yep.
We would not have been able to start being bourbon drinkers in this climate.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
no,
that's how bad things have gotten.
Yeah, I remember going over to a friend's house, and this was before you and I really even started drinking. And he was like, yeah, my wife got me a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle for my birthday, and she splurged for it. And I don't even remember how much she paid, but it was like a few $100. Mm-hmm. It wasn't $3,000.
Right.
right? So like the fact that you could still do stuff like that back then is ridiculous and sad.
Folks,
this
that's
is just a sad
I was
episode,
gonna say,
Bob.
we're going to make that like our slogan. Film and whiskey, ridiculous and sad, TM. Brad, let's get back into talking about Green Book. What do you say?
Let's get to it.
It's back to school season, and Clorox is donating 2 million disinfecting wipes to classrooms across America. Because back to school means things can get a little bit messy. Just ask second grade teacher Mr. Torres.
Put me and just one Clorox wipe on a team? We can take on crayon smudges, sticky fingerprints on every surface, sneezes on the door handle, juice box explosion by the sink, snack crumbs, and don't even get me started on the bathroom passes.
Clorox disinfecting wipes, teacher's #1 wipe.
Think about it. Bathroom passes.
Clean feels good. Based on unit sales data.
Hello, Nigel here. I couldn't help noticing that you're still awake. Now, I'm an owl. I'm supposed to be up at night, but you need your sleep. So if it's your allergy symptoms that are keeping you up, here's a word to the wise. Try Xyzal. You see, Xyzal works fast to relieve sneezing, runny nose, itchy watery eyes, and itchy nose and throat. And it keeps going strong for 24 hours, so you can get your sleep and wake up refreshed and ready for a productive day ahead. Be wise, all. Take Xyzal at night. Use as directed. Starts working in 45 minutes.
All right, folks, that was Heaven Hill Green Label, a whiskey that we paired up with Green Book back in season 1 because of the green theme. I obviously should have paired it with Cutty Sark because that is a whiskey that is consumed in the movie. But to make up for that, Brad, we drank it in as sad of a fashion as Mahershala Ali drinks his Cutty Sark. So,
Bro, we didn't even talk about that when we talked about Mahershala. He is an incredible sad drinker.
Sad drinker, yes.
Just so, like every bit of bitterness about his life comes out when he reaches down into his bucket of ice that holds his bottle of Cutty Sark.
My man drank a fifth of Cutty every night. That is the fact that he lived so long is staggering.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like him after his bottle every night.
All right, Brad, it's time for us to get into Canada's favorite segment, which we call Two Facts and a Falsehood.
Brad is gonna try to stump you, Bob. Two are right and one is wrong. Two facts and a falsehood.
That's right. Two facts and a falsehood, the part of the show where I try to prove Bob wrong, which is very easy at certain times. Bob, I don't know what your record is this year.
I'm not keeping track this season, Brad. I'm just going with God and believing that I will come out on top.
The Lord is my strong right hand. All right, Bob. Well, getting into two facts and a falsehood. Fact number 1, this film is dedicated to Larry the Crow, a bird that hung around the shooting location. Viggo often cared for the animal after it had been hit by a car.
That's great.
Fact number 2, this was only one of 5 films to win the Academy Award for Best Picture without being nominated for Best Director. The other films are Argo, Driving Miss Daisy, Grand Hotel, and Wings. Fact number 3, Farrelly attempted to use a variety of lighting techniques to highlight the difference in the worlds between Mortensen and Ali's characters, using more bounce lighting for Ali and high-key lighting for Mortensen.
You know, it strikes me that we should probably explain what Two Facts and a Falsehood is. Like, we said you want to stump me, but folks, I think you can figure it out. It's Brad making up a fact within these 3, and I have to figure out which one's the lie. And you did a darn good job today, man, because I think all 3 of these sound like they could be true facts about this movie.
You like the Larry the Crow fact?
I'm going to say 3 is true. Number 2, what was number 2 again?
One of only 5 films to win the
yeah.
Academy Award for Best Picture without being nominated for Best Director.
I think that's true. I mean, I know that he wasn't nominated, so unless you're like really finessing it and there was actually like 6 movies, I'm trusting that you didn't do something that nitpicky. I guess number 1's the falsehood. I want number 1 to be true, but who knows? I'm going to say number 1's false.
Bob, my absolute favorite 2 facts in the falsehoods are when I finish delivering the 3 facts and you immediately go, oh, the falsehood is obviously true. Fact number 3 is the falsehood, Bob.
Interesting. No, I didn't think it was obviously true. It's that I didn't know that you knew that much about lighting.
Come
and
on,
when
baby.
you said the word bounce lighting, I was like, oh yeah, that's not Brad. Listen, no offense to you, but
yeah,
you know
after
more
the
about
fact.
lighting than I figured you did. I underestimated you. Man, if you know that much about lighting, you need to start taking better pictures for our Instagram. What the hell are you doing, man?
Sorry, I'll go buy better lighting setups.
Hey, nicely done. You got me.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, that was a good one.
All right, so wait, Larry the Crow or whatever the hell is a true...
That's a true... That is who the film is dedicated to.
What the hell is this movie, Brad? What a weird... They dedicated it to a dead bird who got hit by a car.
I don't know if the bird's dead or not. It just said that the bird hung around the shooting location.
Why would you dedicate it to an alive bird? I don't like... Also, why did the bird not get put in the in memoriam at the Oscars that year? That's what we really should have had.
That's the real question, Bob.
All right, man. What do we have left to say about this movie? I will reiterate. I think Peter Farrelly got an unfair amount of criticism when this movie took off at the award ceremonies. Now, he did not get nominated for Best Director, and that's fine, whatever. I think this is an exceptionally well-directed movie. And the things that people complain about, I think, really all come back to the script. But when it comes to what's on screen, how it's depicted, what is on screen versus off, the lighting, the way the movie's shot, it's a really, really well-made movie. And I think Peter Farrelly deserves, if not an apology from people, I think he deserves to be taken a little more seriously. And his pedigree as a director is, he and his brother made these really farcical comedies, like There's Something About Mary and Shallow Hal. And so people didn't want to take him seriously as a director. But you watch this movie and you would never know that that was what he had in his background, because this is such a well-made movie.
Yeah, that's what I really wanted to highlight coming in today. That at the end of the day, is this like a 9.5 out of 10 incredible Oscar Best Picture winner? No. It's not that. Is it a really fun movie that is technically well made? Yeah. There's a lot of really well done things happening in this film. And I think that it's worth people coming back to. And I know I joked back at the start of the episode that this is the last time I'll ever watch Green Book. I actually don't think that it is. This is a film that I probably another 4 or 5 years from now, I think I would want to come back to and enjoy, because it's just a really fun movie.
Yeah.
And the chemistry between Mortensen and Ali is impeccable. And that's what really sells this movie for me.
I do think that there are elements of the story itself that, you were talking earlier about I could really see this happening in the 1960s. I think that they really err on the side of, I don't want to say harmless racism, right? But the only real hostile racism they face is in the deep, deep South. And Viggo's racism is presented more as racism of ignorance, right? And then they even get into he knows more about Black culture than Don Shirley does. And, I think that a lot of people kind of pushed back on that element of it, that it ultimately presented a very sanitized version of what it was really like to be Black in America in the 1960s. And I think that's a fair criticism of this movie. It is a very palatable movie about racism. You can watch this movie and feel very deeply for that character, but it doesn't challenge you the way that Do the Right Thing challenges you to think about the very deep seated and rooted racism in this country. And at the same time, though, there is something to be said about making a crowd pleaser. And I think that you have to try to balance those two when you're criticizing this movie. Not every movie is intended to be a gut punch when you walk out of the theater. Mm-hmm. And I think that especially whether or not Nick Vallelonga like massaged the details of this story to make it more favorable to Tony Lip, and that's what people say about it apparently, but like I think that you need to have movies like Do the Right Thing, and I also think you need to have movies like Green Book. And I know Spike Lee disagrees with me, but like you can't show certain people a movie like Do the Right Thing without them getting very defensive about it. And I think that this is the kind of movie that you can ease into having conversations by showing people a movie like this. It has its place. And I think that within that place, it's just a damn good movie.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, this film is a story about how in order to move past racism, you have to genuinely spend time with people of a different race. Mm-hmm. Like that's a very simple message I think we can all get behind, where it's like, hey, if you want to get to be less afraid and less dismissive of things that you don't understand, you have to spend time learning and understanding those things.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the message of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and is it a sanitized version or picture of what that might look like in real life? Sure. But at the end of the day, like, we don't have to go to the movies to be disheartened by the state of humanity.
I mean, if you asked me to make a top 5 list of like, or, you know, like make a syllabus of movies that depict race in America, this would not make my top 5, right? Like, it's just, it's not that it's totally inaccurate. It's just that there are other movies that I would point to that drill down deeper, that have a clearer picture and a more complex message behind them. But you also can't always put the onus on movies like this for not going as deep as you would want them to. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, there just has to be a place for Intro to Racism 101.
Yeah.
And even in that picture, like, I understand people push back on certain elements of this movie. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but I think that there are categories to these kind of things. And I think that this movie is a really good example of one of those categories.
Yep. Well, speaking of categories, Bob, I think it's time we move into our final segment of the day, where we pair this movie with another movie, usually from a similar category. So what say you make it a double, Bob?
We're near the end of the episode, so thanks for listening to the Film and Whiskey Show. Let's pair another film with this one, even if it's a struggle. It's our final segment of the day, now let's make it a double.
That's right, it's Let's Make It a Double, the part of the podcast where we pair a movie up with this one to make a perfect double feature. Brad, do you want to go first, or do you want me to get mine out of the way?
I'll jump in first. I think that I would stick with the comedy route rather than the race relations route. I'm going to pair this with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Also holiday themed.
That's right.
The warm fuzzies come back again.
See what I did there?
Nothing like a good cross-country holiday, you know, I'll be home for Christmas kind of theme. Mm-hmm. It just always works.
Once again, the chemistry between Martin and Candy in that is just impeccable. That's what really drew me to pair these two together.
I'm going to pick a movie from almost the same year as Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I'm going to go with 1989's Driving Miss Daisy. It is kind of like the obvious one to pair up because it's a movie about race relations. It is a movie that was highly criticized for presenting such a sanitized version. It's a movie that went up against a Spike Lee movie. This was the year that Do the Right Thing came out, and Spike was kind of roundly rejected by the Academy, and then they heaped awards on Driving Miss Daisy. Now, I will say, I think Driving Miss Daisy has been raked over the coals a lot more than Green Book. And I think that's why it would make an interesting double feature, because when you pair this movie up against Driving Miss Daisy, I think Green Book kind of looks like a masterpiece in comparison. And I think that it would make for a really interesting conversation around why do movies like this have the appeal that they do, especially among awards voters, and what has changed from 1989 to 2018, if anything, in the way movies like this are made. So I think it'd make for a really fascinating double feature, if not as entertaining as the one that you proposed.
Yeah. I would say people will have more fun with planes, trains, and automobiles. That's for sure.
You know, honestly, just listen to Brad this week. Just ignore mine. All right, man. It is time for us to give this movie some final scores. I feel like I've talked a lot in the back half, so I'll just say this. It's a really well-made movie. I think it's a 7.5. And it's the kind of 7.5 that, like, old-fashioned 7.5s. Like, where it is understood that the movie is technically well-made. Because I feel like nowadays when I give a movie a 7.5, it's like, well, it was a Marvel movie, and it kind of looked like crap, and it was kind of directed like crap, but, like, it was enjoyable, so I'll give it a 7.5. It's way better than that. But it's also, like, at its core, this is a 3 out of 4 star movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm a little bit higher than you on this. I'm going to give it an 8.5, Bob.
Nice.
I think it's really entertaining. It's really palatable. It's really easy to come back to. And it's something that I appreciated what Peter Farrelly and Nick Vallelonga were going for. So I enjoyed it, but it's not out of, it's not out of this world. 8.5.
All right. So we're coming out to an average of an 8 out of 10 on Green Book, but we'd like to know what you guys think. It's been years and years since this movie came out. What do you think of it now that it's kind of settled into culture? You can let us know on our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, @FilmWhiskey.
Or you can join our Discord. We are on there every single day talking to you guys, the fans of the Film and Whiskey podcast. You can find a link to our Discord at the end of every single one of our show notes.
Brad, next week, it is time for us to dive into your favorite movie that you have ever reviewed on the Film and Whiskey podcast. It's The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Bro, you can't make me.
Should I place bets as to whether you will like this movie more this time around?
You go ahead and do whatever you want, Bob. you just do whatever you want. This was like the movie that could have ruined the podcast for us.
And some would say did ruin. Some would say we peaked at Green Book and never recovered.
Kind of like Nick Vallelonga.
Yeah, exactly. All right, join us next week for The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.